Hi there, this is video 513. It is a review of how to summarize your data, and we are going to make a frequency table, and then we're going to make a histogram, and then we're going to make a frequency polygon. So it says we need to make 4 intervals. So I'm going to fess up, this is about the third round or more, third version of this video I've made. So I was looking, and I first thought, well, 20 is my biggest number here. If I'm supposed to make it into 4 intervals, that divides out nice, and I can go 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and all that. But then when I went through my data, it turns out none of these values are below 5. So I don't think it's really 4 intervals if one of them is empty. That's making 3 intervals. So let's do it a different way. My maximum is still 20. My minimum is 6. So if I find the range, 20 minus 6, that's going to give me 14. And I need to divide that into 4 groups. So if I go 14 divided by 4, I'm going to get 3.5. Well, I'm not going to go by halves because none of these numbers are by halves, and it would also make life really difficult. So we're just going to round that to 4. Even if I had 3.1, I would still change it to 4. So an interval of 4. So my lowest number is 6. I'm going to add 4. So 6 to 10. And then I start with 10 and I add 4. And then I start with 14 and I add 4, 18, and I go 18 and I add 4, and that's going to give me 22. And that should be fine because I said the biggest, this will include my smallest number and this will include my biggest one. So I don't know if that moves on yours, but I just moved my picture up so I can see better. All right. Going to make yet another confession to you guys. I keep messing up these tally tables, so I'm going to do this in a different way. I'm going to scan through and I'm going to cross off 1. I'm going to look for everything that's between 6 and 10. 2, 3, 4. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 of them. And I'm going to double check. 1, 2. Nothing in there is below 10. And there's, oh, look, there's a 10 there. So that should be 5. Remember when you're doing a frequency table, it goes in the column. It's counted the first time you see it. So it's counted when it's at the back number, not as the front number. So we got 5. Now I need between 10 and 14. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13. If you're doing it this way, I guess it really doesn't matter if you do the tally marks now. Okay, so we're at 13. Now I want to go 14 to 18. I'm also changing my pen color, so if I want to go back and check, I can make sure that everything is in the right spot. So this first whole column is gone. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there was 11 there. And for 18 to 22, there was 1. Now, before we go any further, let's see. 5 plus 13 plus 11 plus 1. That gives us a grand total of 30. And we had 10 years times 2 rows. Okay, so now we have our frequency, and I'm very comfortable with that. Okay, so now we're going to create a histogram from the distribution table. Be sure to label it. All right, so across our bottom is going to go our intervals. And previously counting, I know there's a 33 across here. So you know what? I have to go up to 22. I'm just going to go 2, 4, 6. And that is far enough. It would have been really good. Let me move that so you can see. There you go. All right. Now my data table, all it does is tells you the number of times it happens. So I'm just going to write number down here because that's all it has labeled. So again, our intervals go across this axis. And then going on the y-axis, the vertical one is our frequency. And we can see our frequency, the biggest number we need is 13. So I'm hoping we're good. And then, oops. So with these ones, frequency is always going to be your vertical axis. All right. So now we need to go from 6 to 10. There were 5. So there's 6. And there's 10. And we need to go 5 up. And then from 10 to 14, so it's going to be over to this line. There were 13. So there's 12. So then 13 must be that one. Alrighty, now the next one from 14 to 18, so that's our next box here. I need to get 11. So there's 10, so 11 is going to be right there. And our very last one, from 18 to 22, there is a grand total frequency of 1. And we need a chart title, and we're just going to call it review question. Usually there should be some information up there, but I forgot to write it in. So I guess we will just call it review question. So ta-da, there is our handy dandy histogram. Now to do our frequency polygon, I'll do it in pen. And go to the center of each of them. And then that will be there. I'm gonna have to Google it, but the notes I have say it connects to 0, so I'm gonna put a 0 there. And there we go. There is our review. So we took this table of information that was, although it was nicely detailed, it was really hard to get a feel for the data. We converted it into a frequency table, okay, which allowed us to put us into intervals, so into groups. And it was better and easier to see. I could see clearly that between 10 and 14 was the most common, and between 14 and 18 was less common. And I mean, if you've got 4, this is probably all you would need to do for a summary. But imagine if you had 10 or 12 different columns, different intervals, then it would be harder to pick out the biggest ones. So the easiest is just to flip it into a visual. So here's our frequency polygon. And you can see really quickly that there's my highest, there's my lowest. And that's the end of the review. Thanks.